Hello teachers, learners, and parents. Sir Jeff po, at your service. Alam nyo ba na meron tayong website na tinatawag na DepEd Commons? Ang DepEd Commons ay binuo upang gawing accessible ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral dito sa ating bansa gamit lamang ang inyong mga smart devices gaya ng cellphones, tablets, at computers. Dito ay maaari nating ma-access ang iba't ibang learning materials mula sa Department of Education. Meron itong mga interactive materials, electronic self-learning modules, at instructional video lessons mula sa DepEd TV na tiyak na makatutulong sa pag-aaral ng mga mag-aaral galing ka man sa public o private school. Walang problema dahil welcome ang lahat dito. Para ito sa mga guro, magulang at mga mag-aaral mula sa kinder hanggang grade 12, alternative learning system o ALS, at pati na rin ang special education. At huwag kang mag-alala dahil kahit walang load ay maaari mong ma-access ang mga learning materials. Tama! Libre ito. Ang kailangan mo lamang gawin ay i-on ang iyong data at buksan lamang ang iyong browser at i-type ang commons.deped.gov.ph. Alam na ba ng iyong mga kasamahang guro o mag-aral ang tungkol sa DepEd Commons? I-share mo na ang video na ito upang matuto rin sila kung paano gagamitin ang DepEd Commons sa mabilis at napakadaling paraan. Muli, ito po si Sir Jeff at kita-kits po tayo sa DepEd Commons. Paalam!
Magandang araw! Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang ETULay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang ETULay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng DepEd Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del P. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na pivot ang ginagamit sa ating ETULay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Hello, good afternoon po. Ako po ang inyong tutor Rainier para sa ating Science 9 Week 6 Organic Compounds. So, inaanyaya ko po kayo na samahan po ako ngayong hapon para sa ating pag-aaral ng ating self-learning module. Tayo po ay nasa Week 6 na po ngayon ng ating SLM. So, first, tayo po ay tingin muna po tayo sa ating Facebook. Tayo po ay naka-live sa DepEd Philippines, DepEd tayo. And then at the same time, tayo din po ay naka-live din po sa ating DepEd Edtech Facebook page. At dun din po sa ating platform katulad po ng ating YouTube. Meron din po tayong DepEd Unit at DepEd TV rin po. So, good afternoon po sa ating mga viewers. Maraming salamat po sa pag-tune in sa ating ETULay online tutor. Meron po tayong mga learners from TCES. Meron din po dito kay Jolene Camisil. Hello po sa inyo. Jeneline Clarion and Sheen Sombalon Galvez. Okay, so let's start na po. Again, welcome po sa ating online tutor for this Week 6 Grade 9 level. So ano po ba yung ating pag-aaralan today? So first, tignan muna natin ang ating most essential learning competencies. So ang ating MELCs today is to recognize the general classes and uses of organic compounds. So meron po itong code na S9 MT-11H-18. So, tayo po muna ay mag-review and mag-look back muna po tayo sa ating week 5. So, now, meron po tayo muna ditong instructions on how to answer our looking back section of our SLM. So, let's have part A. So, properties of organic compounds. So, again, welcome po, Rajiv Bayan. Good afternoon, watching from Riverside Integrated Secondary School, Butuan City. Hello po. And Mariette Aquino, hello din po, ma'am. So, meron po tayo ngayong direction for looking back part A. So, again, the direction is choose the correct word that pertains to the property of organic compounds. So, nung week 4 po, week 5 rather, so pinag-aralan po natin yung mga properties po ng organic compounds. So, we are going to have a short review or short recall on the properties of organic compounds. You ready? Let's start with number 1, chemical bonding. So, what would be the chemical bonding of our organic compounds? So, tayo po ay mamimili between two words na magpa-flash po sa screen natin. Is it ionic compound and covalent compound? So, let me distinguish first and differentiate ano po yung ionic and covalent bond. So, ionic bonding, it happens po doon sa ating mga metals or metallic elements and non-metallic elements when they share electrons po. Or when metals loses electron or lose electron, and then yung ating pong non-metals gain electron. For covalent compounds naman or covalent bonding, dito naman po nangyayari ang sharing of electrons between two non-metals. Okay, so meron na po ba tayong mga answers? Ano po ba ang ating chemical bonding for organic compound? Is it ionic or covalent? You may type your answer po sa ating Facebook page po. So pwede po tayong mag-tune in po sa ating DepEd Edtech Unit FB page. Pwede rin po sa DepEd Philippines, DepEd tayo. At meron din po tayo sa YouTube. Naka-live stream din po tayo. Okay, so let's move. Doon na po tayo sa answer for chemical bonding. So the answer is covalent bonding. Yes, organic compounds do covalent bonding since most of the elements po that involved in organic compounds are non-metals or non-metallic elements. Okay, let's move to number 2. How about the melting point of organic compounds? So let's choose between the two. Low or high? So how about the melting point of organic compounds? Low melting point or high melting point? So again, what is the melting point of organic compounds? Ito ba ay low melting point or high melting point? Okay, let's reveal the answer. Of course, generally organic compounds have low melting point. That's the time na mabilis po silang mag-melt. Usually, hindi po ito katulad ng isa pang ano po na compounds or inorganic compounds na mas mataas po ang kanilang melting point. So let's move sa number 3. So how about the boiling point? So the boiling point, this is the point or the temperature where the substance begins to boil. So ito po ba ay low boiling point or high boiling point? So hello po kay Sir Orlando Francisco watching from Division of Manila. Hello po sir. Good afternoon. Ma'am Almira Lazo is watching. Hello ma'am from Division of Caloocan. And hello po Sir Renzel Sanchez. Thank you for support. Now let's move sa ating looking back for number 3, boiling point. So the answer is low boiling point. Again, organic compounds po ay may low boiling points and melting points. So lahat po sila ay mababa po ang point pagdating po sa boiling at sa melting process. Let's move sa number 4, flammability. So this is the ability of a certain substance to na masunog po siya. So organic compounds are generally what? They are flammable ba or inflammable? Ayan. So the answer would be flammable. So lahat po ng ating mga organic compounds ay mayroon pong kakayahan na masunog. So it's a flammable substance. And let's have the last question for looking back. How about the solubility in water? So paano ba mag-behave ang isang organic compound? Is it soluble or insoluble in water? Okay? So dito po, ayan, sige po. The answer in solubility in water, generally, organic compounds are insoluble in water. Ayan. Okay po. So let's have the second part of looking back. These are the uses of organic compounds. So the direction would be choose the correct organic compound for the following specific functions. So again, the direction is choose the correct organic compound for the following specific functions. Okay, so I will be flashing some mga substances po, and mamimili po tayo among the five choices. So the choices are, we have acetone, ayan, kerosene, we also have LPG, gasoline, and formalin. So ano po yung usual na ginagamit natin for fuels for vehicles? Acetone, LPG, gasoline, kerosene, formalin. So again, may I invite our viewers po to type your answer sa ating FB page o kaya sa ating YouTube platform. Okay, so let's move. The answer for fuel for vehicles, of course, the answer is gasoline. Next, let's move to number 2. What is generally used as nail polish remover? So ayan po ang ating mga choices. Acetone, kerosene, LPG, gasoline, and formalin. Ano po ang usual na ginagamit natin sa nail polish remover? So sa mga nagma-manicure, nagpe-pedicure, ano pong usual na organic compound na ginagamit natin to remove yung mga nail polish natin? Okay, so let's reveal the answer. The answer is the acetone. Okay. So may sumagot po, Rufina de Guzman for gasoline. That's correct. Yan po yung question number 1 kanina. So medyo ano lang po yata na delay lang nung pagdating sa sa FB. Ayan. So Rufina de Guzman, that's correct. Acetone that is used as nail polish remover sa ating sa looking back. Question number 2. Okay. So kumusta na po kayo dyan? Okay pa po ba? So let's move sa ating looking back. Question number 3. Okay, it preserves organic material. It preserves organic material. Ano po kaya ang usual na nagpe-preserve ng organic material? So acetone, kerosene, LPG, gasoline, and formalin. Hello po kay Rufina de Guzman. Welcome po sa ating ETULay online tutor for grade 10. And Mercy Death Mangawil, hello po. Good afternoon. And Cathy Trahe Baligwat. Hello po, good afternoon. Yes. Okay, may sagot si Catherine Trahe. Formalin. Yeah, let's check. Ano po ang ginagamit natin to preserve organic material? So the answer or the correct answer is formalin. Yan. So formalin usually it's injected po no sa mga organic material na gusto nating i-preserve. So generally ginagamit po 'yan sa kapag may patay po or pwede pong i-preserve yung kanyang bangkay for viewing purposes. So yan po yung ginagamit. And usually ginagamit din po ang formalin sa iba't ibang species po ng hayop or animals. Okay, so let's move for number 4. It is used as fuel for lamps and remove paints. So what is generally used as fuels for lamps and remove paints? Yan, pili po tayo dito sa 5. Acetone, kerosene, LPG, gasoline, and formalin. Ayan, welcome po kay Ma'am Layozel Joy Layozel Joy M. Macwa. Yan, my dear friend and co-teacher. Thank you po for support. Ma'am Vien Gonzales Laput. Hello po. Yan, magagaling po yung mga science teacher from our school, Manuel Luis Quezon High School. Shout out po sa inyo. Kay Sir Vince, kay Ma'am, my classmate Lenshi Brome. Hello, Ma'am. Thank you for watching. Ma'am, Fernanda Majos Pahares. Ayan po. Yan, nagsasagot na po sila. Again, question number 4. It is used as fuel for lamps and remove paints. Ano po usual ang ginagamit dyan na organic material? Ayan. So the answer is kerosene. Yan. Thank you po. At tama po si Ma'am Fernanda. Levy, yung kanina sa acetone. Lorna, kerosene. Levy Soriano, it's kerosene. Princess Laila, kerosene. Yan. Thank you. Hello po sa inyong lahat. Good afternoon po at welcome po sa ating week 6 of Science 9 for our self-learning module. Maraming salamat po sa pagtutok at pag-agapay po sa ating pag-aaral today. Okay, let's move sa number 5. Question 5. It is used as fuel for gas stove and used to cook food. Ayan. Ano po yata usually ginagamit natin na organic material for fuel for gas? For gas stove and used to cook food. Ito po yung pagpipilian. Acetone, kerosene, LPG, gasoline, or formalin. Ayan. Ma'am Brome, hello po, good afternoon. Princess Laila, LPG, or the liquefied petroleum gas. Ano pa po yung mga usual na answers natin? Again, question 5. It is used as fuel for gas stove and used to cook food. LPG, John Lin, ang sagot po niya. Rufina de Guzman, LPG. Okay. Okay, let's reveal the answer. So the answer is LPG. Ayan. So those are our answer for looking back na usual pong ginagamit po natin sa bahay ng mga organic materials. Yan, may pumapasok pa pong mga answers from Norma Eslao Graganza LPG. That's correct po. Ma'am Lorna from good afternoon po, watching from Pasay City North High School MAB Annex Lapu-Lapu City Division. Hello po, good afternoon. And Lorna B. Ojen LPG, Norma Eslao Graganza. Good afternoon po. Good afternoon po din sa inyo, ma'am. Okay. So now, let's move to our discussion proper. Which of the following considered as organic material or organic, simple as organic? Ayan. So I will be showing some pictures and then let's identify kung sila po ba ay organic o hindi. Ayan. So yan, masarap pong red apple. Yan, that's one of my favorite fruits po usually. Ayan. So meron din po tayong mga stones na nandyan sa screen. Ayan po, meron po tayong duck o bibe. Meron din tayong red toy car sa baba. Ayan. Ito, masarap din po itong merienda. Ang ating corn, yellow corn. Now, meron din po tayong sugar. Iwas-iwas po sa mga may diabetes, yan yung ating sugar. Siyempre, no? Kasi madaling tumaas ang ating glucose sa dugo o yung ating blood sugar. Hi, Sir Jason. Yan, watching din po. Hello, sir. Good afternoon po. And yan, rabbit. Napaka-cute na rabbit. One of our domesticated animals. Now, so ano po sa mga pictures po na to ang considered natin as organic. So, even if hindi pa po natin alam yung word na organic, so let's have some, hulaan po muna natin, which of the following pictures po dito ang mga organic material. So, you may type your answers po sa ating FB page. So again, welcome po sa ating Science 9. Week 6 na po tayo ng ating SLM. Usual po ang ginagamit po nating SLM ay from Calabarzon Region A, yung kanilang SLM na ginawa po nila. So yun po yung usual na po natin na sinusunod. Okay, so may mga answers na po dito. Princess Laila, her answer are apple, corn, rock. So let's check po natin yan later. So Norma Eslao Graganza, sagot po niya ay corn. Okay, thank you for answering. Ariel Tanyag, Daigo, sir, ang sagot po niya ay apple and corn. Yan, so answers are coming na po, no? Lenny Soriano, apple, yellow corn, and sugar. Yan po yung mga sagot nila. So ano po kaya dito yung mga organic materials po natin? So again, yung pagpipilian po natin, naka-flash na sa screen, no? The apple, we also have the duck, toy car, meron din po tayong stone, rabbit, corn, and sugar. Ayan, may sagot po si Levi Soriano, apple, yellow corn, and sugar. Ayan. So usually po, ano po ba ang mga organic materials po dito? Ayan. So exclude na natin yung hindi organic o yung tinatawag po nating inorganic. So ang inorganic po dito, ito pong stone. Yan, yung mga nagpatong-patong po na bato. So they are called inorganic material or considered as inorganic material. And this one, the toy car, nasa lower left po natin, yung red toy car. So this is also considered as inorganic material. And the rest, lahat po sila organic material. So meron tayong apple, the duck, we also have the sugar, rabbit, and the corn. Lahat po sila considered organic material except po doon sa dalawa, yung stone and the toy car. Ayan. So, ano nga ba ang tinatawag nating organic? So, what is organic? So, ano yung term na organic? So, in chemistry, the term organic describes chemical compounds that contain carbon and other elements such as hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, or phosphorus. So take note on the elements po na involved in organic material. Basically, siya po ay composed po ng carbon. So yan po yung unang-unang element talaga that makes up organic compound. And then, lagi pong may kasama itong mga elements or traces of elements such as hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, or phosphorus. Yan. So that's what we call organic. So let's consider the following compounds below. Now, meron tayo ditong table that is divided into two sides, the left and the right side. On the left, we have organic compounds. On the right side, we have inorganic compounds. So now, nakita po natin yung mga chemical ano po nila, formula. So pangalanan muna natin kasi most of them hindi po natin talaga alam pa yung mga names nila o kung paano natin siya basahin. So let's start with the first organic compound, C7H7NO. So pwede natin sabihin na this organic compound has 7 atoms of carbon, 7 atoms of hydrogen, 1 atom of nitrogen, and 1 atom of oxygen. So that is what we call the benzamide. Okay? So this benzamide is considered as organic compound. Let's move to C2H4O2. 2 atoms of carbon, 4 hydrogen, and 2 atoms of oxygen. So this is what we call the acetic acid. So acetic acid usually comes in liquid form at ginagamit po ito no for preservative din at laging hinahalo po sa ating ano po. Yung ating ginagamit pong seasoning which is the vinegar. And we also have the C2HCl3O, the dichloroacetyl chloride. C2HCl3O, dichloroacetyl chloride. We also have organic material or organic compound HC6H7O6. Mahaba yung yung chemical formula. Anong pangalan ng organic material na to? So this is ascorbic acid. So usual na component po, active component po ng ating vitamin C na tinitake po natin na mga supplements or mga vitamins natin. Yan. So let's move to the right side of the table, the inorganic compounds. So what is H3PO2? So that's hypophosphorus acid. Hypophosphorus acid. Ayan, tahimik na yata yung mga natin, learners natin kasi pinag-aaralan na natin, medyo technical na, no? So, wag pong masyadong matakot sa mga chemical formulas na to. So, it's just lang po, chemical formula. Ang mahalaga dito is try natin consider kung paano natin ma-identify yung isang chemical formula kung ito ba ay organic or inorganic. Ayan. Huwag matakot sa mga chemical elements na yan. Okay. So, let's move to sulfuric acid. H2SO4. Itong sulfuric acid, no, one of the strongest acid ever created. So makikita po natin ito usually sa car batteries, no, ng ating sasakyan. H2SO4 is also considered as inorganic compound. Ayan, hello po sa ating 41 viewers po sa DepEd Edtech. Nakatutok po kasi ako sa DepEd Edtech Unit FB page at ito po yung nakikita ko pong mga viewers natin. Again, thank you po sa pagtutok. Next, we have sodium sulfate, Na2SO2. It's also inorganic compound. Yan. And last one, meron tayong calcium chloride, the CaCl2, inorganic compounds. Now, so ang question natin, paano natin malalaman ang mga chemical symbols na to or yung mga chemical substances kung sila ba ay organic or inorganic compounds? So ano ba sa mga particular na compounds na to ang common when we say organic compounds? So let's analyze the chemical formulas of benzamide, acetic acid, dichloroacetyl chloride, and ascorbic acid. Most of them, ano po ba ang kanilang common elements? So, syempre, they have carbon atoms represented by letter C. They also have hydrogen atoms. At meron ding iba na may nitrogen atoms and oxygen atom. And then for dichloroacetyl chloride, meron siyang chlorine. Ayan. So sumagot po si Sir Ariel Tanyag, carbon. Okay. So common po sa apat na binanggit nating organic substances or organic compounds, they do have carbon components on their structure. Princess Laila, carbon, that's correct. Thank you for answering. Ayan. So let's move sa inorganic compounds. Ano kaya ang wala sa inorganic compounds na hindi natin pwedeng i-compare sa organic compounds, no? Kasi sa inorganic, meron silang hydrogen component, they also have phosphorus and oxygen. That's yung first pong inorganic compound, yung hypophosphorus acid. For sulfuric acid, meron siyang hydrogen, sulfur, and oxygen. Sodium sulfate, meron siyang sodium, meron siyang sulfur and oxygen. And calcium chloride, calcium and chlorine. Ayan. For inorganic compounds, wala po silang carbon component. So, basically, ang difference between organic and inorganic compounds is just carbon components. Pwede nating sabihin na from benzamide down to ascorbic acid, lahat po sila ay may carbon atoms. And for inorganic compounds, from hypophosphorus acid down to calcium chloride, wala naman po silang carbon component. Okay. Now, our bodies are composed mostly of water and it is necessary for us to survive. However, water is an example of an inorganic compound because it does not contain carbon and it was not formed by a living organism. So basically, ang water po o yung tubig ay hindi siya organic compound. Kung isusulat natin ang kanyang chemical formula, it's very simple, H2O. So it has two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. And again, water is not considered as organic compound. So let's move to general classes of organic compounds and its uses. Now, let's study po no, yung tinatawag natin na hydrocarbons because ito ay papasok po sa tinatawag nating organic chemistry. One of the branches of chemistry that deals with organic compounds. Ito po yung tinatawag natin na organic chemistry. Yan. So ano-ano yung mga main types or organic classes natin when we are dealing with organic compounds? Meron tayong tinatawag na carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acid. Again, kumusta na po kayo dyan, mga viewers natin from DepEd Edtech Unit FB page at yung mga iba pang platforms na saan po tayo naka-live stream po. Good afternoon po sa inyong lahat. Okay, so let's move to our organic compound classes. So let's have the carbohydrates or usually sinasabi nila ito yung carbs. And kung kayo po ay medyo nagda-diet, ito yung mga pagkain na medyo iwasan natin kapag nagda-diet. Kasi nga, meron tong maraming calories. But, aralin natin ano yung mismong carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are organic compounds made up of elements which are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And the ratio of hydrogen atoms to oxygen atoms in carbohydrate molecules is 2:1. So, meaning to say, ang ratio ng hydrogen to oxygen atoms ay 2:1. Carbohydrates, this is considered as the largest class of organic compounds found in organisms. Now, carbohydrates are classified according to how many subunits they contain. Yan. So, pag-aaralan natin in details yung mga subunits of carbohydrates. So, meron tayong monosaccharides. So kung narinig nyo na po ito no, sa ating elementary science, na di-discuss na to, yung mga tinatawag natin na different types of sugar. Yun yung pagkaka-present sa elementary. We have monosaccharide, the disaccharide, and the polysaccharide. So this three subunits ay syempre gumagamit po ng prefixes na mono, di, and poly. Na merong ibig sabihin. Mono means one, di means two, poly means many. And saccharide ay galing sa saccharum po na Greek which means sugar. Let's move to monosaccharides. So monosaccharides are what we call the simplest sugar. Yan. So wag matakot po sa mga structural formula ha. Ano lang po yan. This is a great way on how chemist po i-represent po yung kanyang structural formula. Ayan po. So we have fructose, glucose, and galactose. Ayan, may question lang po ako. So ano yung tinatawag natin dyan na fruit sugar? Among the three, ano po ang tinatawag natin dyan na fruit sugar? Or sugar that can be found mostly in fruits? Pwede po tayong sumagot sa ating FB page po, sa ating DepEd Edtech Unit. Ano po ba dito ang mga fruit sugars? Is it fructose, glucose, or galactose? Ayan, sumagot po si Ma'am Norma, fructose. Princess Laila, fructose. Ayan. Meron pa po ba? Ano po ang mga fruit sugars natin? Hi, Ma'am Regina Batiduan Garcia, my co-teacher and my friend. Hello po. Thank you for watching. So dito po, ano po ang ating sagot sa fruit sugar? So definitely, fructose. Nandun na yung medyo may idea na tayo o clue. Fructose is what we call the fruit sugar. Yan, tama po si Levi Soriano. Thank you, ma'am. Salamat po. Okay. Ano naman ang meron tayo dito na yung glucose natin? This is considered as the blood sugar. Yan, ito yung ating mini-maintain, no? Bawal na mataas ang ating blood sugar sa pagkain po ng maraming carbohydrates. Kaya ingat-ingat po sa mga may diabetes, as I've said earlier, kasi yung glucose ang mini-maintain po natin, no? Na hindi dapat mataas at hindi rin dapat mababa. So dapat balance lang. Yan. And the galactose, this is what we call the milk sugar. So again, these are the three simple sugars under monosaccharides. Examples lang po ito, no? Fructose, glucose, and galactose. Yan, meron po tayong answer from Mary Jane Aguilar. That's fructose, tama po. Rufina de Guzman, that's correct po. We also have Jamila Pasir Usop. Good afternoon, everyone watching from Lanao del Norte. Wow, thank you po for watching straight away from Lanao del Norte. Yan. Mary Jane Aguilar, glucose. Yan. Okay. The next type of sugar or carbohydrates are disaccharides. They are formed by linking two monosaccharides together. So, assume natin na may dalawang monosaccharides ang ililink o ipipair together to form another type of sugar, which is the disaccharide. Ayan. Meron tayo dito sa right side ng mga examples of disaccharides. We have sucrose. So sucrose ay galing po sa one glucose unit and one fructose unit. So glucose plus fructose is equal to sucrose. So that is what we call the common sugar. And then, syempre, ito po ay galing po no, sa ating plants po. And then, this sucrose ay magiging pong table sugar kapag na-refined na po in refinery. So, this sucrose ay galing po sa tagi-isang subunit ng glucose and fructose. The next type or example of disaccharide is the lactose. So, one galactose unit plus one glucose unit. So, meron tayong lactose. Again, it is a sugar found in milk. Parang katulad din sa galactose. So, this is lactose. And, di ba meron tayong sinasabing lactose intolerant? Yung mga tao po na wala silang lactase sa kanilang intestine, kaya medyo nahihirapan silang mag-digest o tumunaw ng lactose. Kaya somehow, nagkakaroon po sila ng stomach upset, so sumasakit po yung tiyan nila. Kaya iwas-iwas po sila sa mga dairy products o nagtitake po sila o kumakain sila ng mga lactose-free o lactose-intolerant po ng mga pagkain. Yan. Meron tayong maltose. This is a malt sugar from glucose and glucose. Parehong glucose units. And then, makakabuo po ng malt sugar. And the last one is the polysaccharides. Poly means many. These are long polymers composed of hundreds and thousands of monosaccharides. Yan. Starch. So alam naman natin kung ano yung starch, no? So ito ay galing po sa mga ano po, no? Sa plants. And glycogen and cellulose. Yan. Itong mga pinapakita nating mga organic compounds which are classified as carbohydrates and polysaccharides to be exact, sila po ay source din po ng ating energy. Siyempre, carbohydrates kasi or carbs, these are literally the initial source of energy ng ating katawan. So, ano po ba ang mga functions ng carbohydrates? So, yan. So, isa-isay natin. So, number one, it acts as the main source of energy. Kaya, isa sa mga mahalagang diet po natin o pagkain ay carbohydrates kasi ito ay source ng energy. Number two, plants and animals used it for structural purposes. Three, it facilitates cell-to-cell recognition. And number four, it serves as component of nucleic acids. So those are the functions of carbohydrates. Ang ating unang example po ng organic compounds. Yan. So, yan, waiting po kung may mga questions kayo regarding sa carbohydrates. So, let's move na sa ating second class of organic compounds. They are called lipids. O iba, lipids. So, binabasa nila. Rufina de Guzman watching from Batanes. Wow, thank you Ma'am Rufina. Kahit napakalayo ng inyong isla sa Batanes. Maraming salamat po for taking time to watch sa ating Facebook Live natin sa DepEd ETU or ETULay natin na online tutorial. So now, let's move to lipids. So lipids are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. They have higher hydrogen to oxygen ratio than that is found in carbohydrates. So mas mataas po yung ratio nito when it comes to carbohydrates. Pag sinabi nating hydrogen to oxygen ratio. May kinalaman lang to sa pagsulat po ng mga chemical formulas. So lipids have three major groups. So the triglycerides, this includes the following. So meron tayong fats, oils, and waxes. We also have steroids, another group or major group ng lipid or lipids. And the last one is the phospholipids. Now, hindi na po natin masyadong i-discuss yung mga specifics ng lipids kasi mga grade 9 students, meron po itong mga more specific pa na topics pagdating po ng grade 10. Okay. So now, let's move sa ating saturated fats. Nagaling po ito sa triglycerides, no? So, saturated fats and unsaturated fats. So, I want you to pag-aralan po natin yung differences nitong dalawang to. The difference between saturated fats and unsaturated fats sa mga category na state. Ayan. So when we say state, ito po yung states of matter. Kung ito ba ay solid at room temperature or liquid at room temperature. For saturated fats, solid at room temperature po ang mga saturated fats. And unsaturated fats po, liquid at room temperature. So usually, ang saturated fats ay lagi itong solid, no? Sa room temperature, mga 25 degrees Celsius. And liquid naman po for unsaturated fat. Another category po ay sources. Saan usually natin matatagpuan o makukuha ang mga saturated fats? From animal sources. Watching from Cagayan de Oro City, Princess Laila. Thank you for watching. And from plant sources, unsaturated fats. Yan, kita na natin kung saan nanggagaling yung saturated fats. Galing po sa mga animals. And unsaturated fats naman from plants. Number of bonds. Kasi dito sa ating fats, meron pong single to double bonds, meron naman wala. For saturated fats, lacks double bond in the fatty acid chain. And unsaturated fats, they have one double bond in the fatty acid chain. So these are the differences between saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Kukompare natin sa mga state, sources, and number of bonds. So yan po yung ating saturated fats and unsaturated fats. So what are the functions of the lipids? So these are the following. 1, store energy for long term. And number 2, waterproof covering. Now, itong mga functions ng lipids na to ay huwag natin masyadong katakutan. Baka sabihin natin fats, hindi masyadong dapat kainin. Pero syempre, when we are eating fats, dapat in complete moderation. Huwag naman masyadong madaming fats na pwede nating magkaroon tayo ng high blood pressure kasi sobrang mataba yung pagkain na kinakain po natin. So dapat lang po, in moderation. And tandaan that these fats are somehow storage po ito ng ating energy for long term. And waterproof covering. Okay, so let's move sa pangatlong organic compound class which are called the proteins. Sa Tagalog, protina. Ayan. So naalala ko nung elementary science ko, pinag-aaralan namin tong protein foods, mga ano po, yung tinatawag natin na grow foods. Ayan. And the proteins usually consist of chains of amino acids called peptides. No, the building blocks po kasi ng proteins are amino acids. And basically we have 20 amino acids po sa ating katawan. And ito mga proteins na to or protina, isa rin po na talagang magandang source po ng ano po natin na dapat kainin natin sa ating iti-take natin sa ating katawan. Now, so technically, proteins consist of the following elements. We have hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen atoms. And some proteins contain other atoms or elements such as we have S, which is sulfur, P, phosphorus, Fe, ano po yung Fe? Iron, Cu, copper, and Mg, magnesium. Yan po yung mga some components po ng proteins. Hindi natin bibigay yung structural formula, no? Medyo ano na siya, technical na siya. So the examples of proteins are the following. So we have hemoglobin in our blood. Yan, ito po yung parang ano siya iron magnet na nagmamagnet din po ng oxygen sa ating dugo. The collagen, ayan, rich po yan sa protein. Insulin is also an example of protein. Keratin sa ating ano po, buhok, sa hair natin. Myoglobin, it's also an example of protein. Number 6, fibrin. Yan. So those are few examples of protein. Marami pa pong examples ng protein. Ayan lang po yung mga few examples po natin. Okay, the functions of proteins are the following. Cellular structures, control substances in and out of cell, and of course, fight diseases. So yan po yung mga functions po ng ating protein. And don't forget, ito pong proteins na to ay nagre-repair po ng ating mga muscles sa katawan natin. And fourth one are the nucleic acids. Yan, pang-apat na po ito, no? Nucleic acids. What are nucleic acids? These are molecules in our cells that direct and store information for reproduction and cellular growth. So typically, nucleotide is composed of the following. Meron po itong tatlong composition. We have the phosphate group, a pentose sugar, and a nitrogenous base. Yan. So ang isang nucleotide po ay may ganitong composition. So technically, meron itong phosphate group, nakakabit sa isang pentose sugar, and naka-attach din sa nitrogenous base. Ayan, nakalagay dito example, adenine. So makikita nyo lang po dito sa screen, no? Ito ang basic structure ng isang nucleotide. So meron siyang phosphate group. Hi ma'am, Leonila Paglinawan, watching from Laguna. Hello po, and thank you for watching. Pentose sugar and nitrogenous base. Yan. What are the two types of nucleic acid? Yan, naririnig na rin natin to, no? Kahit nung elementary days natin. The ribonucleic acid. So, RNA. Somehow, binabasa siya as ribonucleic acid. And number 2, deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. Yan. So, meron ako ditong illustration from thoughtco.com. So, the difference between DNA and RNA. So, on the left, the deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA. On the right, the ribonucleic acid, RNA. So makita natin dito the difference between DNA and RNA on the structure. Sa DNA, meron po itong double-stranded sugar phosphate na group nandito nakalagay. And for RNA, usually single-stranded lang siya na meron din sugar phosphate. Yan ang difference nila. So DNA, double helix po yung kanyang structure. And then ribonucleic, single strand. D, capital D, deoxyribonucleic. So D double, yun ang tatandaan natin. Deoxyribonucleic acid, double-stranded. Sa RNA naman, single-stranded. Sa sugar naman niya, so deoxyribonucleic acid, so deoxyribose, that's the sugar found in DNA. And for RNA, the type of sugar is ribose. Yan po yung kanilang pagkakaiba sa type of sugar. And then, yung mga base pairs po nila, ayan din po, nakalagay din sa DNA and RNA. So base pair, sa kabila naman, single nucleobase. And then, syempre, meron din pong mga, ano po dito, nucleobases na cytosine, guanine, adenine. And we have thymine at napapalitan po ng uracil. Okay. So kung kanina po in graphical form, ito naman, nandito naman po sa ano po, text form naman. So the bases for DNA, adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. For RNA naman, ganun pa rin, pinalitan lang ng uracil, yung thymine. For the strand, double-stranded for DNA and single-stranded for RNA. Structure, anti-parallel helix, and for RNA, hairpin and loops. Again, nabanggit na natin kanina, the sugar, deoxyribose, and for RNA, ribose. Sa location naman, the nuclear or mitochondrial yung DNA, makikita sila doon, and the nuclear or cytoplasmic naman sa RNA. The lifetime, DNA long, RNA short. Process, the process of transcription, ang DNA, and process of translation naman sa RNA. Usually, this transcription and translation, mas ma-explain ito when we move up to the next grade level. Sa grade 10, nadidiscuss na po itong transcription and translation. Types of, dito po sa DNA, merong nuclear DNA. Dito naman sa RNA, medyo marami. May mRNA, tRNA, etc. etc. Nandiyan na rin po sa nakalagay sa ating screen. Ayan. Another illustration po showing the difference between DNA and RNA. Kitang-kita natin that DNA has double strands na may ano po, sugar phosphate backbone. And then sa RNA naman, single strand lang siya. Inaano lang natin, ine-emphasize lang natin yung structure ng dalawa. Yung isa, single strand, which is the RNA. The other one is double strand, that is the DNA. The functions of nucleic acids are DNA serves as the blueprint of the genetic makeup almost of all organisms, and RNA is responsible for protein synthesis.
Sir, good afternoon. Last
Yes,
2
sir.
minutes, sir.
Yes, sir.
2 minutes.
Learning task na natin. Ito na lang siguro, sagutan na lang natin. So, number 1, carbohydrates. These are the largest class of organic compounds. Number 2, molecules in our cells that direct and store information for reproduction and cellular growth. Proteins is the answer. Number 3, used for energy storage and signal to molecules to help communicate with each other. So the answer are lipids. They are used to build structure, catalyze biochemical reactions for immune response. So the answer is the nucleic acid. Naman, learning task naman, sugar cubes, carbohydrates. Wheat bread, carbohydrates, carbs. Melted butter, lipids. Ribonucleic acid, given na yan, nucleic acid. Virgin coconut oil, so lipids. Deoxyribonucleic acid, nucleic acid. Hair and nails that contain keratin, protein. An insulin needed by diabetic patient, protein. Sweet extracted juice from fresh pineapple, carbohydrates. Earwax that protects insides of human ears. Ito, medyo tricky to, no? Pero ang sagot sa 5bot ay lipids. Pero ang alam ko, pwede rin siyang protein because generally, wet earwax, which is brownish and sticky, contains 50% fat and 20% protein. So, lipids yun. Pero pag dry earwax naman, on the other way around, 18% fat and 43% protein. So, pwede ring proteins from health.harvard.edu. So, generalization, again, organic po, these are the compounds na merong carbon and other traces of elements like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus. And the general classes of organic compounds are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids. Again, for the next topic natin, next week, week 7, pag-aaralan natin ang mole concept. Hindi ito yung nunal ha. Merong ibang ibig sabihin ang chemistry when we are dealing with mole. So yan, meron tayong assignment, aralin natin ang mole concept. Thank you very much po DepEd Edtech for allowing me to share my knowledge about Science 9. Thank you po at kayo po ay nagbigay sa akin ng opportunity to be an ETULay online tutor for this day. Again, thank you very much.
Sigurado ako na marami ka na namang natutuhan sa ating ETULay tutorial session ngayong araw. Tandaan, ito ay hindi lamang para sa ating mga mag-aaral, kundi pati rin sa ating mga minamahal na guro at mga magulang na kaagapay natin para maituloy ang pagkatuto sa kabila ng nararanasang pandemya. Patuloy ding sumubaybay sa DepEd TV para sa mga araling ginawang video episodes. Mapapanood ito mula Lunes hanggang Sabado, alas 7 ng umaga hanggang alas 7 ng gabi sa inyong mga telebisyon. Abangan bukas mula alauna ng tanghali ang iba pang aralin sa ating ETULay free online tutorial session sa English. I-like and subscribe at manatiling nakasubaybay sa ating ETULay tutorial session sa DepEd Edtech Unit FB page at Educational Technology Unit channel sa YouTube at sa DepEd Tayo at DepEd Philippines social media accounts. Paalam!